For creatures capable of launching rockets into space and deciphering the genetic code, humans remain comically inept at simply identifying what exactly they feel. That gnawing sensation in your gut isn't hunger, nor is it definitively fear. It's a vast, nebulous, unnamed state, a psychological wilderness where millions stumble daily, mute to their own inner landscape. We possess thousands of words to describe the external world, from the crystalline structure of ice to the nuances of political theory, yet when it comes to the intricate symphony of our internal experience, our lexicon often collapses into a series of grunts and vague gestures. This isn't merely a quaint linguistic shortfall, it's a fundamental vulnerability. Imagine navigating a dense forest without a compass, your destination obscured by an ever-present fog, your map a blank parchment. This is the daily reality for countless individuals, adrift in a sea of nameless emotions, unable to articulate the subtle shifts and seismic tremors within their own minds. This internal incoherence isn't benign. It festers, it complicates, it distorts. Without the precise semantic anchors, these unlabeled feelings become untethered entities, free to morph into anxiety, depression, or an inexplicable irritability that poisons relationships and productivity. The modern world, with its relentless pace and expectation of immediate self-awareness, demands a clarity that our emotional vocabulary consistently fails to provide. The question, then, isn't just why we lack the words, but what profound, unseen damage this deficiency inflicts, and how deeply rooted this linguistic poverty truly is. The historical and cultural construction of emotion reveals a peculiar selective deafness. Our ancestors, acutely aware of their immediate environment and social hierarchies, developed extensive vocabularies for observable phenomena and practical necessities. Emotions, however, were often lumped into broad categories dictated by their social utility or disruptive potential. Anger, fear, joy, these are ancient primal labels, serving as crude indicators for flight, fight, or procreation. But what of the more subtle, nuanced states? The quiet despair specific to a cold, gray morning, knowing it will rain again? The peculiar blend of nostalgia and regret for a future that never materialized? These complexities were rarely formalized into distinct words. Consider the concept of melancholy. For centuries, it was a medical diagnosis tied to humoral theory, a physical imbalance rather than a purely psychological state. Only relatively recently did it evolve into the broader, poetic concept of a contemplative sadness, eventually pathologized into depression by modern psychiatry. Other cultures offer tantalizing glimpses into what we lack. The Portuguese saudade, a profound, melancholic longing for something or someone absent, often with the knowledge it may never return. The German Waldeinsamkeit, the feeling of solitude in the woods. Or the Czech Litost, a state of torment created by the sudden sight of one's own misery. These aren't simply translations. They are distinct emotional landscapes, recognized and named. Their existence highlights the arbitrary nature of our own emotional lexicon, shaped less by the actual spectrum of human feeling and more by the prevailing philosophical, medical, and social currents of the time. The evolution of emotional language is not a linear march towards comprehensive understanding, but a meandering path dictated by utility, convenience, and the dominant cultural narratives, leaving vast territories of internal experience unmarked on the map. The mechanics of how an emotion arises, prior to any linguistic processing, reveals the profound chasm between raw experience and its symbolic representation. Deep within the brain, the amygdala fires instantly upon encountering a perceived threat or reward, triggering a cascade of physiological responses. Heart rate accelerates, pupils dilate, muscles tense, all before the conscious mind has even begun to register a coherent thought. This primal subcortical reaction is pure, undifferentiated arousal. It's merely feeling, not yet fear or excitement. The prefrontal cortex, the seat of higher-order cognition, then scrambles to make sense of this sudden internal tempest. It sifts through context, memory, and learned associations, attempting to assign a label, to impose order on the chaos. This is where the struggle often begins. If the context is ambiguous, or if an individual lacks a robust emotional vocabulary, that raw physiological data remains an uninterpretable signal. Furthermore, the body's internal sensory system, known as interoception, plays a crucial role. Some individuals possess a finely tuned interoceptive awareness, capable of distinguishing subtle variations in their heart rate, gut sensations, or muscular tension. They might articulate, "I feel a tight knot in my chest, a prickling sensation on my skin, and a lightness in my head." Others, however, experience a blurred, generalized internal noise, making it nearly impossible to pinpoint the specific physiological signatures of distinct emotions. This neural lag, coupled with varying degrees of interoceptive sensitivity, demonstrates that the problem isn't just about finding the right word. It's about the brain's ability to even differentiate the internal signals that precede language, leaving a vast, undefined internal landscape, a constant internal hum of something, but never what. The inability to name one's emotions exacts a steep psychological and societal toll. In the personal realm, it translates into chronic misunderstandings, both of oneself and others. How does one address an anxiety that cannot be articulated beyond feeling bad? How does a partner respond to a vague discontent that has no descriptive anchor? This emotional illiteracy often manifests as maladaptive coping mechanisms, lashing out in anger when the underlying emotion is actually hurt, withdrawing when the true need is connection, or seeking external distractions to numb an internal state that defies identification. Clinically, this phenomenon is often referred to as alexithymia, a marked difficulty in identifying and describing one's own emotions. While alexithymia exists on a spectrum, even mild forms contribute significantly to mental health challenges. Individuals struggling to label their feelings are less able to regulate them, leading to higher rates of depression, generalized anxiety, and even psychosomatic complaints, where undifferentiated emotional distress manifests as physical symptoms. Societally, this lack of emotional precision creates a population perpetually on edge, susceptible to manipulation and prone to conflict. When individuals can't articulate their nuanced grievances, they resort to broad, often aggressive expressions. The economic ramifications are substantial. Mismanaged or unaddressed emotional states contribute to decreased productivity, increased healthcare costs for stress-related illnesses, and a general erosion of social cohesion. The proliferation of self-help literature, therapeutic modalities, and emotional intelligence courses underscores this profound deficit, creating a multi-billion-dollar industry dedicated to simply helping people put words to what they feel, commodifying the very lexicon we've historically failed to cultivate. So, what becomes of these phantom feelings, these nameless specters that haunt our internal world? Some find their voice, ironically, through the very avenues designed to bypass the limitations of language. Art, music, and poetry. A haunting melody can encapsulate a sorrow that no prose ever could. A stark painting can evoke a dread more potent than any verbal description. These mediums offer a temporary sanctuary for the unnameable, a shared space where subjective experiences resonate without the tyranny of literal definitions. But for most, the struggle persists. We invent new words, borrowing from other languages or creating clumsy neologisms in a desperate attempt to categorize the internal chaos. The quest for emotional literacy continues, driven by the realization that clarity of feeling is intrinsically linked to mental well-being and social harmony. However, there's a darkly humorous, perhaps even profound irony at play. Is it possible that some feelings are meant to remain beyond the confines of our linguistic architecture? That the very act of forcing every subtle internal tremor into a predefined semantic box diminishes its unique essence? Perhaps the vastness of human experience, with its infinite nuances and contradictions, will forever defy complete capture by our finite vocabulary. The ultimate truth might be that the struggle itself, this relentless, often futile pursuit of a name for the ineffable, is not a flaw in the human condition, but its very definition. We are forever the creatures who landed on the moon and split the atom, yet still stand baffled by the strange, wordless ache in our own chests.